So Brother Livre has a presentation for us today, and his title is The Ultimate Pandemic.
Good morning, everyone. Hey, it's Father's Day. And guess what? We're going to talk about fathers today. I remember when we were in the process of coming to America, the officials used to tell us that in America, there's a hierarchy in terms of respect when it comes to family. You know, on the top, in terms of family, of course, on the top you had kids, and then you had mothers, and then you had, pets, dogs, cats. I guess depending on the state that you live in, and all at the bottom you had parents. So my dad had to question, a couple of those statements. It's like, is this the place I want to be at? But regardless, we do love you, fathers. And one thing you might be wondering is, Livre, you're only, 22. You're not a father yet. What qualifications do you have, to speak on fathers? And what I can say on that is that, at the end of the day, all of us are children. At some point we were all kids, and we had our fathers with us. So the only thing I can say about that is that I have an earthly father, that I'm learning to serve, and hopefully and essentially that is in practice of getting me ready to better serve our Heavenly Father. So what is the purpose of fathers? Why should we honor our fathers? What if our fathers are ungodly? Drug abusers, promiscuous. What about kids without fathers? How should those kids, learn to honor their fathers who was never there in their lives in the first place? There's so many questions in terms of fathers and fatherhood in general. But hopefully, as I throughout my talk, I'll cover some of those questions, and I'm sure you got many others. And so one thing I've been doing is reading this book. It's entitled Fatherless America. The subtitle of the book is Confronting Our Most Asian Social Problem. And the author is David Blankenhorn, who happens to be a family counselor, and among other things, related to helping families that have been displaced. And in the book, so the premise of the book is this, whether our concern is with crime, violence against women, educational failure, child poverty, teenager pregnancy, there's no social trend of a generation that is more dangerous than fatherlessness. The book outlines the 5 types of fathers, and the 5 types of fathers that do wrong, and then it provides a picture of the ideal father, essentially. And I also had some interesting facts on fathers as well by website. So the name of the website is called Fatherhood Initiative. The name of the website is called Fatherhood Initiatives, and their main aim is to help fathers, is to help individuals be better fathers, of their families and to their kids. And here's before I get into that, I wanted to read an excerpt from the book. It's on page 25. I have it on my screen here. And the excerpt here's how the excerpt from the book reads on page 25. Fatherhood is a social role that obligates men to their biological offspring. For two reasons. It is society's most important role for men. First, fatherhood, more than any other male activity, helps men to become good men, more likely to obey the law, to be good citizens, and to think about the needs of others. Put more abstractly, fatherhood bans maleness, in particular male aggression, towards pro-social purposes. Second, fatherhood privileges children. In this respect, fatherhood is a social invention designed to supplement maternal investment in children with paternal investment in children. Paternal investment enriches children in four ways. First, it provides them with a father's physical protection. Second, it provides them with a father's money and other material resources. Second, it provides them with a father's money and other material resources. Third, and probably most important, it provides them with what might be termed paternal cultural transmission. A father's distinctive capacity to contribute to the identity, character, and competence of his children. Fourth, and most obviously, paternal investment provides children with the day-to-day nurturing, feeding them, playing with them, telling them a story that they want and need from both of their parents. In virtually all human societies, children's well-being depends decisively upon a relatively high level of paternal investment. So that's an excerpt from the book. And now I'm gonna present some of the findings I got from the website Fatherhood Initiatives. And like I mentioned, their main aim, is to help individuals be better fathers and, be able to get fathers that have been separated from their families reunited back with their families. So here was some of the facts from their website. This is just a fact. Some of these are gonna make some of us flinch, and that's okay. Dad's involvement during pregnancy positively influences health outcomes for mom, dad, and baby. It's just a fact. Involved dads reduce mom's parenting stress. It's just a fact from the website. Children living in female-headed homes with no spouse, with no spouse present, have a poverty rate of 47.6%, over 4 times the rate for children living in married couple families. Higher quality father-daughter relationship is a protective factor against engagement in risky sexual behaviors. Just the facts from the website. Allowing new fathers to be involved in caring for their child in the first days of a child's life can have positive long-term benefits. Children who live with their dads, do better in school. Just the facts from the website. Individuals from father absent homes are 279% more likely to carry guns and deal drugs than peers living with their fathers. I got a couple more here. Adolescent boys with absent fathers are more likely to engage in delinquency than those with fathers who are present. The number of children with an incarcerated father, grew 79% between 1991 and 2007. And then the last one, women with absent fathers are more likely to have children with absent fathers. with all that has been said, we see that fathers are important and critical to a child's well-being. And secular research has agreed, fatherlessness is an issue that our society faces. Oftentimes, when you think of the pandemic, we have a tendency to think about incurable diseases, like corona and Spanish flu, and there's diseases that we don't have the medications to, but fatherlessness is a one of the pandemics that our society faces. But hey, there's still hope. Come with me to Exodus chapter 20. Exodus chapter 20, verse 12. That was Exodus 20, verse 12. Honor your father and your mother, that your days may be long upon the land which the Lord your God is giving you. I'm reading from the New King James Version. So, before we get into that verse, so one thing I'm doing, I'm actually in the process, getting my citizenship, and one thing I'm having to relearn is about the process that the founding fathers, had to go through as they were getting ready to build the country, the United States. And for them to break away from the Britain, one of the first thing that they worked on was make the law, was create the law. And it was only through the creation of the law that they were going to have a nation, because law regulates the everyone's behavior in a society. And so law is important to a nation. So before we start even questioning the verse, why honor our fathers, why honor our mothers, we got to ask a couple of questions in mind, and that from the verse that we just read, who's God talking to, and why is God talking to them, and ultimately what is God's objective, with what's going on here. So if you come with me to Genesis chapter 12. Genesis chapter 12, verse 1 to 3. Genesis 12, verse 1 to 3. It's God talking to Abraham. Now the Lord had said to Abraham, get out of your country, away from your family, and from your father's house, to a land that I will show you. I will make you a great nation. I will bless you and make your name great, and you shall be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and I will curse him who curses you. And in you all the families of the earth shall be blessed. So, key takeaways in those three verses, we see that God's talking to Abraham, and God is promising to build Abraham a nation, and the purpose of that nation will be for that nation to be an example to other nations. Throughout the scriptures, we know that it failed the first time when Jacob and his 12 sons were living in the land of Canaan. There was a famine, and then they ended up going to Egypt. So the first time, could almost say it failed. And then once they moved to Egypt, there was a bad king that came up by the name of Pharaoh, and then the children of Israel ended up getting enslaved in Egypt. So you could almost say the first trial failed. And now in the Exodus account, we see that, God is having to do a do-over again, a do-over project. And it's a do-over project in trying to build a nation. And we notice that the first thing that God is doing here is giving them law. And we've mentioned that law is the ultimate foundation of a country. Law holds a country together. God's mission is to create a nation. And throughout the laws that God gave them, the first one he gave them was for there to be just one God, for there to be a nation, there's gotta be a standard in terms of what's morally right and wrong, or what's morally right and wrong. Otherwise everybody's gonna do what's right in their own eyes. And the first law, you shall have no other gods beside me. That's in Exodus 20 verse 3. And then it gets into other laws, but we're not going to get into that. The focus of today's talk, at least, is to focus on fathers and mothers eventually. So one thing about law too is that law can be a good thing and also a bad thing, because law has its benefits and the law has its consequences. Breakers of law, were in the Old Testament at least, were supposed to die. We're supposed to die or be condemned to death. See, here's the dilemma then. When fathers in our society are not aligned with God's principle, we see the collapse. We see the collapse of society. And one thing about God and the title of fatherhood is that God placed the highest honor of his title to fathers. And the way for one to rightfully act, as a father, is to emulate God as the ultimate example. So the word father in Hebrew can be deemed Abba, which can mean source, foundation. And so I'm thinking about that. So when we were living in South Africa, in a refugee camp, we'd just gotten into the camps, and what happened was everybody in the camp was given tents, like regular tents, good tents. To this day, my parents still question sometimes when people go camping. Why would somebody leave their comfortable house and go camp and go sleep outside? But we were living in camp, out of choice, obviously, and the tents that we were given, at first they were in a decent form. They were durable. They could withstand the rain. But it got to the point where there was some conflict of interest within the officials, and so as a result, they had to take away the tent, and they took out the tents. And when that happened, it meant that everybody in the camp had to try to build their own houses. And in trying to build everybody trying to build their houses, I can still remember, we went into the woods. We went into the woods and found as many logs and wood as much as we could possibly find. And then we headed over to the camp. And I remember, helping fix our house. It was a rectangular shaped almost, and it had four woods. So on each angle, 4 woods on each angle, and then to make a sense of wall, we use blankets to create the walls for the houses. And then on the top, we use plastic bags. We cut plastic bags up. I think there was an agency that came, just supplied plastic bags in the camp, and so we used those as rooftops. And then inside, to break up the rooms, so that parents and kids were separated, we use more blankets to divide it up. And then the whole floor was all sandy. It was. I mean, you swept up every once in a while, but you could still see that there was residue of sand everywhere. So I remember this one time in particular, we were asleep. It was in the middle of the night. I don't know if Best Audio remembers, but it's in the middle of the night, and everybody was sound asleep. And I woke up, and the next thing I noticed was that it was raining so hard. It was like the rain was pouring. It was pouring. It was pouring so hard that everybody had to wake up, and all our beds. Sometimes, to create a form of bed, sometimes you only had blankets. If you're lucky enough, you had your own mattress. So it was uncomfortable to sleep in because everything was all soaked up. It was uncomfortable, just unbearable. And so everybody had to wake up, and everybody was looking onto everybody like, okay, what do we do now? What do we do? I mean, looking back, it was sad, but I laugh about it because. So, while in this process, fortunately there was a shelter near us, not too far from where we lived. It was like the only shelter closest to where the camp was. And inside, there happened to be a co-worker that was working in there. And then a co-worker noticed what was happening and then started calling people from the camp to go over into the shelter. And everybody went over to the shelter. And the shelter was about the church, I would say, like the inside, but about this size. And then there were bunk beds everywhere, lined up. Yeah, and I can still remember, having to walk over to the shelter, and there was a lady that guided me, through the veranda, and then eventually to one of the empty beds. And I remember stepping on the foundation of the shelter, and how concrete, and how, because the veranda was formed so that on the top there was a roof, and then when the rain was pouring, none of the water could touch the basement. But regardless, despite how floody it was, there was no water able to go into the shelter, and it was just having to step on that foundation and having to walk into that shelter. And as a kid, I couldn't help think, once placed on one of the bed, I couldn't help think about how comfortable and how secure I felt in that. There was a sense of of calmness, as opposed to being in that shelter, like calmness. I'm safe and I'm secure. And so, yeah, as a kid, I can't, it was just a sense of peace, of calm, and that I'm in secure hands. So, as our Father, God is our foundation. God is our foundation. He can be relied on. God can be relied on, and as our Father as well, God is our provider. The book of Ephesians 4, verse 19 reads, and my God shall supply all your needs according to his riches in glory by Christ Jesus. That was Philippians 4:19. Philippians 4:19. And my God shall supply all your need according to his riches in glory by Jesus Christ. You know, and not only does God as a father act as our provider, but God as our father also acts as our roots as well. You know, when you think of a tree, the most important part of a tree, you know, isn't the branches, you know, the leaves that grow on the tree. It's actually the roots. And, you know, one thing about the roots is that, you know, only if the roots are supplied with the necessary ingredients for the roots to grow, only will then that help the branches and the leaves out. You know, as the roots, you know, God is acting behind scenes for us. You know, it doesn't brag, you know, for the security, you know, and the safety that we experience. And, you know, as branches, you know, rooted under God's root, you know, we can always be secure, you know, and strong that we're not going to have to waver. So, for fathers and mothers, being a father or mother is not easy. That much I know. And you guys have so many responsibilities, and you guys are constantly, you know, working hard and going the extra mile, you know, to make sure that the kids are taken care of. You know, we appreciate that. And, you know, there's times when you guys try, you guys try as hard as you can, but sometimes you fail. I can say that's okay, you know, because it's not an easy thing being a father or mother. But one thing we need is, you know, it's more of a reminder than anything else. We need, you know, fathers and mothers to act more, you know, within the specific roles that God, you know, has given them, has set up for them, and, you know, constantly be good examples to us kids. And it's one of the reasons we meet here, you know, Sundays, you know, to emulate, to try to serve our Heavenly Father and one another, you know, while learning to be better servers of our Heavenly Father that way. Come to me to Matthew 5, verse 58. Matthew 5, verse 58, reading from the New King James Version. Therefore you shall be perfect, just as your Father in heaven is perfect. You know, the perfect in that context doesn't mean perfectionism, because perfection is impossible, you know. And we have countless examples in the scriptures that, you know, fail to attain that perfectionism. You could almost say, you know, other than, you know, Jesus Christ, of course. But the word perfect in that context can mean, you know, complete, you know, and holy. That should be, you know, the goal of, you know, each and every one of us, you know, fathers, mothers, and kids. To conclude here, I'm going to read from the book of Ephesians, chapter 6. Ephesians chapter 6, verse 1 through 4. Ephesians 6, verse 1 through 4. Children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. Honor your father and mother, which is the first commandment with promise, that it may be well with you and you may live long on the earth. And you, fathers, do not provoke your children to wrath, but bring them up in the training and admonition of the Lord.